Away from the budget detail and the partisan political debate, there is something historic and damaging going on here that we need to always keep in mind and eventually overturn. In fact, the one silver lining of the power price hikes and the likely power shortages in the months and years to come is that they might force more people and more politicians to wake up. But in plain terms, what we're seeing in this country, and we've been seeing it now for more than a decade from governments, state and federal, Liberal and Labor, what we're seeing is an act of national self-harm. As a nation, we have a number of economic disadvantages. One of them, for instance, is the tyranny of distance. We're a long way from our markets, and even within our own shores, the vast spaces and sparsity of our population hurt our economic efficiency. A lot of our country is not highly productive. Much of it is desert, with little ability even to store water because it's so flat, the topography across the continent. But we also have some economic advantages, and the biggest of these is energy. Most countries could only dream of the amount of coal, gas and uranium we possess, enough to power ourselves indefinitely, and of course plenty to earn enormous export income as one of the world's largest exporters of both coal and gas. But what we have deliberately decided to do is turn our energy advantage into a disadvantage, turn our greatest natural economic advantage into a disadvantage. Instead of keeping our manufacturing, refuelling our small businesses and industry and underpinning our high standard of living with cheap, reliable energy, we've decided to force out as much coal and gas generation as we can and spend hundreds of billions of dollars on renewable energy installations, transmission lines, batteries and pumped hydro schemes to try to replace our fossil fuel generated power. The result so far has been to push up electricity prices and jeopardise supplies. And as you've just heard, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it has any chance of getting better, if it ever does. We refuse to use our own uranium, which could give us an emissions-free and reliable energy replacement, and we're aiming to eliminate all coal-fired power and most of the gas. Now, there are a number of problems with this, as you know. First, it's a huge cost we've decided to inflict on ourselves, which has forced some industries to shut and relocate offshore, and it makes our entire economy less efficient, reducing our standard of living. Second, there's no benefit to the environment because we only produce 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and whatever cuts we make each year here are more than made up for by increases in other countries such as China and India. And third, and this really is the kicker, the whole plan is impossible. No country has been able to make the switch to a renewables plus storage model. They all run into energy supply and price crises. Just look at Europe now or California. The technology just can't do what the politicians and the activists pretend it can, yet. So in this country, we're hurting ourselves with climate virtue signalling, doing actual economic harm for no environmental benefit. Our enemies could not do a better job of undermining our economy. And in last night's budget, there was one little announcement that underscored this unique madness. A little item under the climate change and energy section showed that $9.8 million in federal funding had been restored to the Environmental Defender's Office and some other environmental legal services. The Environmental Defender's Office launches legal action against developments and projects. Its website boasts about the projects it's taken action against or blocked, often in the name of climate change campaigning. In other words, we have private companies looking to, say, extract gas or expand a mine, build a generator or some such, and they get approvals under the law, and we have government-funded environmental activists going to court at taxpayers' expense to block these same developments. We have the government funding activists to stop economic development, stop the creation of jobs, the generation of incomes and taxation, economic progress. This is what I mean about national self-harm. We are deliberately pursuing policies that make us economically weaker and strategically more vulnerable, while these same policies help to make our strategic rivals like China comparatively stronger. That is what Australia is doing to itself right now. Someone needs to show some leadership, stop the self-harm, and unashamedly promote the strengthening of our nation and the buttressing of our economy. We can't change the global climate. That's just a delusional ambition. But we can save our own nation, and that's what our governments are supposed to do.